I'll just start. I'll talk a little bit about me. My name is Katie Dutcher, and I was really happy to meet um, Adrian at the Bullish conference. I've gone to that conference 3 times now, and I love it. I always meet amazing people, and she's one of them. And so the talk that I gave there was about introverts. This is going to be more talking about anxiety, but I think that in some ways they're related. I know that a lot of people have anxiety, not just introverts. And at the same time, I think introverts or highly sensitive people are especially prone to anxiety. I can speak for myself with that. I think it's partly because the the way the world is kind of engineered for working in groups and being social and collaborating, we find ourselves kind of out of our element maybe, and that's what brings the anxiety. So what I do is my main thing is I teach meditation and mindfulness, and I'm in Monterey, California. I have a meditation studio with a partner, Monterey Bay Meditation Studio. And then I also do coaching where I get to work one on one with people. And we talk about stuff like this about working with anxiety, um, getting more self compassion, how to actually practice mindfulness or do meditation, how to get started. So I love that. I love working with like teaching groups, but also working one on one with people so it can really drive it home. Um, so like I said, make sure if you like to just type questions as they come up. Um, ooh, look at that. I can scroll down. I'm sorry, I called you Adrian. Adeline. Sorry about that. Thanks for joining. Oh, thank you. So let's get right into it, talking about anxiety. I imagine that you're here because you, at least sometimes, have some anxiety. And some of us, you might deal with it daily. It might be something that hits you in certain moments, like, oh, I'm about to do a live video. I am anxious. Um, or it might be something that sometimes hits you like before you open the eyes in the morning, where you're just like, I don't know if I can deal with this day. Um, there's all these different flavors of anxiety, and I'm sure that we're all familiar with it. Um, for what I would like to just say about it, for one, is that there's like 11 of us, 11 people watching right now. That's 12 with me. And then there were others who had signed up so that they are people who also face this. I talk to people all the time, and I don't know if I've ever met anyone who says, anxiety, I never really have faced that. So, one thing to know is that you're not alone. We are not alone in facing this. Um, the other thing is just to acknowledge that it sucks. It is like, it's a full, not even just full body, it's a full being experience. So, what I mean by that is, yes, we think of it as emotions like fear, and other emotions that can come along with it. So, there's emotions, there's also thoughts. The thoughts are kind of like the stories that come along with it that say, I'll never be able to do this. It's too much. These kind of stories that run through our mind. So emotions and thoughts, that's basically the heart and the brain, and then the body. And so, all kinds of things from tension in the neck and shoulders, upset stomach, dry throat or fast breathing. So the body is affected too, which means that there's no part of us that is not feeling anxiety when we're experiencing that. And the reason I'm saying that is because not because you didn't know before that it really sucks, but because our main reaction to it, or our main kind of default response, is resistance, right? We're kind of like, let me get over this. Let me ignore it. Let me run away from it. I just want out of here, right? Because it doesn't feel good at all. It doesn't feel good in your body, your mind, anything. It doesn't feel safe. So we want to just get rid of it. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. We can kind of escape or distract for a little bit, but eventually it comes back, and it or it just goes underground and comes out somewhere else. So if resistance is not working, then we need to do something different. And so I want to just bring a little metaphor here, and this might be especially um, vivid for anybody who's a mother. I'm not a mother, but I can imagine my little sister has a baby, and I know a little bit about it. So think about a crying baby. Nobody likes to hear the sound of a crying baby, right? It's unpleasant, it's stressful to hear it. And yet, if you think about a good and loving parent, when they hear their baby crying, they are not going to resist it, right? They're not gonna say, well, let's put that baby somewhere else so we don't hear it because we don't like that sound. Or, I'm gonna go away and go, get a glass of wine and maybe I won't have to deal with that, right? They don't go away from it. They go toward it, not because they love the sound, but because they they know that that sound means something is needed. I need to pay attention to something here. They also know that once they address those needs, that the crying will stop. So I want us to maybe start thinking about our own feelings of anxiety like that crying of a baby. So instead of turning away, even though it sounds crazy, we turn toward. So instead of resisting, we start first step by what seems counterintuitive by accepting it. Yes, it's here. So that's part of the transformation. Instead of pushing away, let it be here. So when we're doing this, there's a really good acronym that I can mention. I'm just gonna scroll down and make sure that I'm seeing some questions here. Oh, good. I see one question about, does stress cause anxiety? Does anxiety cause stress? Yeah, there's some distinction and overlap between the two. Um, I think I would say I like the idea that stress causes anxiety. Um, that stress for me is that sense that when things are kind of too much, when you feel like whatever's happening is more than you're capable of dealing with. Um, and then and then there's anxiety around that as well. I think also of stress, and I could be wrong about this, but I think also of stress as um, a little lower grade, although we can have high stress, but anxiety seems like a continuous, kind of a habituated response to things, if that makes sense. I have to admit, I do sometimes use those words just, for each other. Um, Anxiety really kind of sits a little deeper, I feel, and it comes back. It seems like it's chronic sometimes. So to give a bit of an acronym here, okay, the acronym is RAIN, R-A-I-N, and maybe add another N. And I can also add this to the comments later. I have a little graphic about this. So we start with R. R is recognize. So that could just look like us saying out loud or in our head, oh, I recognize this is a moment of anxiety. So I could recognize it by any of those signals, the signals in my body, the tension, the fearful feeling, the what's the other? Oh, the thoughts that are maybe spinning around or seeming overwhelming. So any of these can be a signal to me where I say I recognize it first, and I say, okay, this is a moment of anxiety. The next is A, R-A, allow. You could say allow, you could say accept. And again, that's that not resisting, saying, okay, I may not like this, I may not enjoy anxiety at all, and yet here I am. This is what my current experience is. I'm having some anxiety. And I can also say that's really the core of mindfulness there, that it's um, to accept and acknowledge what's going on, whatever's going on in the moment. And in this moment happens to be anxiety. So once you accept it, you recognize it, you accept it or allow it, then I is investigate. So actually allow yourself to explore in this time of anxiety. What are the emotions that are here? What are all of them? Yeah, fear is probably a big one. There may also be anger. There may be sadness. Um, there may be these other kind of auxiliary emotions that are coming in. What are the thoughts? And when you hear some of the thoughts, there might be also this tendency to be like, is that really true? Some thought like, this always happens to me. Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Or I'm the only one who has to face this. Probably not. I'm not saying we have to reject all of our thoughts, but that we actually notice them and investigate them. And then, so what did I say? So the emotions, the thoughts, and then the body sensations too. Actually feel it. Where am I feeling the anxiety? Is it my shoulders and neck? Is my jaw clenched? That investigation too will often prompt us to do something about it. Like if I notice my jaw is clenched, I will maybe unclench it. Or if I notice my breathing is really fast, I might slow down the breathing. We're smart like that. Sometimes all it takes is noticing to actually begin to help ourselves a little bit. Marissa says, I so needed this. I hope it helps. So recognize, allow, investigate. Then we get to the ends. So I have two ends here on R.A.I.N. One of the ends is non-identification. And that's a big word that basically just means perspective. A lot of times when we're feeling anxious, we feel like we are all alone, isolated. We judge ourselves, like you're weak for being like this. You should be able to handle this. Look at that person; they're super calm, they're fine. So we're doing all these judging and isolating kind of things, which means we're really bound up in it. We're very like self-identified with it. And this basically just is us reminding ourselves to not identify with it. We're not alone. Right now, tons of people are facing anxiety. And if not now, then sometime. Um, that the other part is like, yes, this is part of my reality, but it's not the whole story. There's much more to me than this moment of anxiety. And there's much more to my life than me facing anxiety. So this is about kind of like zooming out a little bit. Yes, we're not diminishing it. We're not trying to say, oh, this is not important, but it's not the whole story. It's not the whole picture. And then the last N is nourish. So this is just a reminder to be gentle with ourselves. If you think about a friend going through something like this, who is all tense in their body, really fearful, just not at ease, just really suffering, you'd be like, oh, let me give you a hug, man. You're doing your best, right? You wouldn't say something like, buck up, or what is wrong with you? This isn't that big a deal. You wouldn't say stuff like that. And so this is about beginning to act in that same compassionate way with yourself, even just a little bit, even just to say, okay, I'm trying my best. Or even just like, I like to put my hand on my heart and just something like, oh, this hurts. This is hard, right? So it's just a little bit of gentleness. And then maybe too, there's something that you want to do to help yourself. Not those behaviors that we sometimes turn to react, like eating, drinking, endlessly scrolling through our phone. Those are some things we do to cope with stress. But what I'm talking about here are the things that actually would help or soothe us. So maybe like taking a walk, talking to a friend, meditating, whatever it is for you. There's a lot of different things that could actually make you feel a little bit better. Um, let's see, I'm just making sure to see everything. Yes, let's be gentle with ourselves. That bears repeating again and again. Almost all the time, we're being probably a little bit or a lot harder on ourselves than we need to be. So that's kind of an overview. And I want to say one more thing that I just was thinking of a couple minutes ago, and this might be helpful. Just to remember that the feeling of anxiety doesn't hold any facts within it. So let me explain that. We often maybe have this idea that if we were good at something, or if we were competent enough to do it, that we would feel great about it. And so that the fact that we're feeling anxious means something, like it means that I'm not going to do a good job at it, or means that I'm going to fail. It actually doesn't mean anything. All it means is that you sometimes have anxiety. If you go back and look through your life and kind of pinpoint all the moments you've had anxiety along the way, and then look at when things went well or didn't go well, I don't think you will find any relationship between them. I know for me, every time I teach, every time I speak in front of more than one person, um, I have some anxiety about it, a little or a lot. And a lot of times those things go very well, and I was prepared, and the anxiety doesn't mean something. All it means is that it's a habit that I have to go through this time of anxiety. So that might be a little bit helpful as well. So that's a little bit of an overview. I wanted to mention that there's lots more. This is the book that came out just a couple months ago. In September, I finished it. So this is a workbook, and it has a lot of text and teaching, some of what I just said, plus a bunch more. And it also has guided meditations. There's a website. You can go online and listen to the guided meditations all the way through. There's like meditations for each part of this R.A.I.N thing, recognizing, acknowledging, investigating, and all of that. There's also journal prompts and things like that. So it's meant to be a self-guided course that you can take yourself through. I've taught this course in person for a few years now, and I really wanted to package it up so that anybody could do it. So that's on my shop, and basically with that, I feel like if you take, so it costs $20, and mainly your time, maybe a month of time to work through and practice these new approaches, you will change your relationship to anxiety. Doesn't mean you'll get rid of anxiety, but you'll change the way you experience it, and that means you'll change how it affects you. So that can be huge. The other thing I wanted to make sure to mention is that, oh, thank you, is that you don't have to work through it by yourself. You can. Some people really like to do that just at their own pace. Some people can get stuck. You intend to do it, but then you don't finish. And so what I am doing this holiday season is I'm hosting a read-along. So anybody, the read-along is free. Anybody who orders this between now and November 26th will be invited to join the read-along. So it's just going to be a free group based like in a Facebook group, and we'll work through it together. We'll have some live meditations that I'll do in the group with some questions, some sharing and support. So I'm excited about this. I'm excited to do, it's on your own, but yet at the same time, it's supportive, much like this group, Sabbatical Beauty, is supportive. I'm wondering, well, first, so I'm excited about that. Let me know if you have questions about that. Tell your friends. I'll also give you some discount codes at the end, but first I want to ask, do you have questions? Oh, thank you for posting that, Adeline. Do you have questions about anxiety or like times when you experience anxiety? If you do, just go ahead and pop them in there. And if not, that's okay too. Well, I'll talk a little bit more, and then if you have any in the meantime, just post them up there. So I'm really glad that you were here, and I hope that it is helpful in some way. For me, even after years of working through this process, it's it's a real shift to stop the resisting it and just let myself feel it, even though I don't want to, and um, and then begin investigating it. But it really, really can help. It changes things. It's like you have a monster chasing you, and instead of running, 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 you actually stop and look at it, and maybe it's not quite as scary at that point. I see some questions here. What do you think is the main obstacle to people overcoming anxiety? It might be the idea of overcoming it. I hate to say that, but the idea that maybe we could just totally wipe it out of our lives. Maybe that has happened for some people, but I think it is much more about working with it in a beneficial way rather than banishing it. Maybe even like making friends with it rather than overcoming it. That's what I see anyway. I see with my own anxiety that it's it's something that like it does come. It probably doesn't affect me in the same way that it used to, but it's part of who I am. Might be in my DNA, right? Um, let's see. Yes, we did talk a little bit about stress and anxiety. Rachel says passing an object from hand to hand can help distracting your brain. That's a nice idea. I also like um, breathing, right? I mean, I'm a big fan of meditation, of course, but going along with the hand thing, a really good one is 5 finger breathing. And I teach this to kids, but I think it's for everyone. So basically, you breathe in as you trace up your thumb, and then you breathe out. And you breathe in, trace up the next finger, breathe out. And what that does, the slow breathing is really it has an effect on your nervous system, but also sometimes we have trouble focusing on our breath. So when you're actually like maybe looking at your hand and tracing it, you can feel it, you can see it, and that helps you to keep focused on your breath. Um, Stems from things you can't control. Yes. Um, yeah, it makes you feel nuts because it feels like I can't even control this. Why can't I let it go? I'm totally with you, Natalie. And and that's probably I think a big thing for us humans, this uncertainty. That's a big one when you're not sure how things are going to turn out. And breathing through it really. So I want to make sure I give you some codes if you want to do a little bit of shopping for you or for some other anxious people that you know. So in my shop, I have this book and I also have my other book, which is actually about uncertainty. They have a lot of links. So I want to give you guys 10% off anything in the shop. And the code for that is SB, like Sabbatical Beauty, SB Get 10. Okay, so SB Get 10. And then for the bigger ticket items, those are all like coaching sessions where we would work one-on-one over the phone or like FaceTime. And so I have different sessions, 4 sessions, 6 sessions, ones that go right along with the book where we can work personally on that. So anyway, I want to give you 20% off of any of the coaching sessions, and that's SB Get 20. So SBGET 20. I am going to also add to these comments after we go some links to some meditations. I do live meditations on Facebook every week, and then they're on YouTube. So I'll just link over to some of the ones that have to do with anxiety in case you want to try them out. I'm just gonna check down here, see what else. Yes, thank you. You got the codes in there, Marissa. Thank you so much. This has been fun, and I love being in the group. I'm excited to talk to you all some more. Take care. Have a good night.